All right, I'm back for part two. Um, like I said, I read through all of your WAs today, and I have up on my screen some of the examples that you wrote about. Great list that I'm going to add to my list. You know, I gave you a list in the Blackboard file, but it's a couple years old, and you guys really updated a lot of these. So many from movies use these techniques. Movies, well, let's go through the list. Gone Girl, Deadpool, Blade Runner. Somebody put Spaceballs. I love Spaceballs. Pizza the Hut. Wall-E uses postmodern techniques. Pulp Fiction, a number of people mentioned Pulp Fiction. That may be one of the classic examples. That does a lot of postmodern strategies. Another classic, one of my favorites, it's not to everybody's taste, but Monty Python and the Holy Grail, a couple students mentioned that. That is postmodernism at its finest. Fight Club uses some of these postmodern strategies. Inception, which is a movie I got to see again because the first time I saw it, I couldn't wrap my head around it, so I need to see it again. Donnie Darko, another great example. Some of you mentioned the Divergent series, The Giver, classic kind of science fiction book, and one of the most recent ones I read. Have you ever seen Borat? That comedy, very postmodern. From TV, another really good list. A lot of people mentioned The Office. Usually have a number of people write their paper on postmodernism in The Office because there is so much there. Modern Family. I don't know if you noticed this, but there's a lot of examples of postmodernism on TV shows today, and particularly in animation. I mean, a number of you mentioned The Simpsons and Family Guy. What are some of the other ones? Ed and Eddie, Rick and Morty. Um, and I think the reason that is because animation. You can put anything up on the screen. You can do all kinds of things. It's a little bit harder to do that in live action, but you know, with cartoons, you can whatever you can think of, you can put up there on the screen. So animated works are filled with postmodernism. Kind of goes back, even somebody even mentioned Looney Tunes. I mean, Bugs Bunny is like one of the first anti-heroes that kids have ever been associated with all these years, and he would do stuff like break the fourth wall and all that kind of stuff. So we see a lot of it in animation. Uh, some of you mentioned Quantum Leap. Oh, American Dad. That's another cartoon. How I Met Your Mother. Buffy the Vampire Slayer uses postmodern techniques. Uh, Breaking Bad. And then two that I got hooked on and kind of binged watch in the last couple months: The Witcher and You. I don't mean you personally. I mean You, the show, uses a lot of postmodern techniques and strategies. I'm still trying to get over that one. That's a pretty weird show. Um, but anyway, a lot of great choices. Uh, and just to refer back, and if you want to refer to your Blackboard file 33, I have listed 17 very common postmodern techniques that we see in movies and TV shows and books. I think a couple of you mentioned some musicians use postmodern strategies too. That would be a great topic to write about. And by way of introduction, I always just try to say that most of these techniques have been around for a while. I mean, Shakespeare, some of them go back to Shakespeare. I mean, Shakespeare would break the fourth wall and do some of these things. But it really started after World War II. A lot of artists and writers and musicians and other creative people, many of whom had been to war and seen the horrors of war, came back and decided that the old ways of storytelling just didn't cut it anymore. My favorite postmodern writer was a guy named Kurt Vonnegut. He wrote something called Slaughterhouse-Five, which I think is like one of the main examples of postmodernism. He suffered a lot in the war, and when he came back, he tried to write a war story in the traditional way, and he just couldn't do it. So he relied on a lot of these other techniques to try to tell the story. Basically, for a lot of people like Vonnegut, their basic premise was, life out there, and my God, we're seeing it right now. This is very timely. Life doesn't always make sense, and it's unpredictable, and we can't control it. And in many cases, it doesn't have a structure. And yet we expect our literature to do those things. And people like Vonnegut said, I want the literature to be more like what life is really all about. Life, it doesn't have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And life doesn't always make sense or have a reason or a purpose. So he decided, and many people like him decided, that they would use these postmodern strategies. And I have a listing here, and you can read them. I mean, you did this for the assignment. Telling the story out of chronological order. They just decided, I think I'd rather tell my story and jump back and forth in time, like Pulp Fiction. I think it works better for my story if I do that. Many of you mentioned works that had more than one narrator or point of view. You're not supposed to do that. Traditionally, you decide, who's going to tell your story and stick with it. Well, the postmodern writer said, I'm not going to do that. A lot of these stories feature a main character who is about as far away from a hero as you can get. And here's where the connection to anti-hero, which we studied earlier in the semester, comes in. So many postmodern works feature as their main character an anti-hero. Breaking Bad, Buffy, The Witcher. I mean, I'm just looking over here. Donnie Darko. The people in Pulp Fiction are not heroic. So you can just go down the line and you check off number 5 on the list here, featuring a character who goes against our expectations of what a hero is. Breaking the fourth wall. I've mentioned that already a couple times. You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to remind the reader or the person watching the show that they're reading or watching a show. And when a character breaks the fourth wall and suddenly turns and says something directly to the reader or the audience, it breaks the whole pattern of, what we're trying to believe in. But the postmodern writer said, I want to use that. That's an interesting device. I can grab their attention. I can call their attention to something that maybe they wouldn't have caught if I didn't do that. Kind of keeps readers on their toes. It keeps the audience on their toes. In fact, 8 and 9 kind of go together, acknowledging that the story really, it isn't real, or I'm going to challenge your perceptions of what you think are real. So you never know from one scene to the other, is this really happening, or is this, it kind of demands more of you too. I think that's another thing that postmodern works do. If you just sit and watch a traditional movie, you just kind of watch it and it plays out and all the scenes are pretty predictable. And then when the story wraps up in a nice, neat bow, you go, well, okay, I got what I was supposed to get out of the story. I liked it, I didn't like it, whatever. But postmodernists don't do that. They may not give you an ending, or they may stop in mid-sentence or in mid-scene, or, play around with time, go back and forth in time, as I said. A couple of these other ones, moving from one tone or mood to another repeatedly, and often without apparent reason. Well, somebody like Vonnegut would say, well, that's what life is like. You can have a sad moment, and then the very next moment you'll be laughing your ass off, and then vice versa. I think we see this a lot in TV shows. I mean, most scenes in situation comedies only last like maybe a minute or two, and then we're on to something else. We have short attention spans today, so everything's got to move really fast. That's a postmodern concept. Instead of a long, drawn-out, extended scene, you get images, flashes, and moments that you have to keep track of and you have to pay attention to. So these are some of the different kinds of things you see in postmodernism. Number 12, making references to other works and other characters in other shows. You're not supposed to do that. That's breaking a rule. But shows like The Simpsons and Family Guy, they do that all the time. Make references to other characters or other shows or other works of literature or whatever. And then I guess my favorite is number 16, and this might be the only one that needs explanation. It says making no distinction between high art and low art. And basically what that means is I'll throw whatever it is I want to throw at you. I won't fit in any kind of genre either. We're so used to saying, well, what kind of show is that? Well, it's a mystery, or it's a cop show, or it's a Western, or it's a comedy. Postmodernists will say, I don't want to be categorized. I don't want you to be able to say my work is this or that. I'll throw anything at you that I can think of if I think it helps my story. And that includes humor. And again, Monty Python's the best example of this. If you've ever seen Holy Grail, some of the jokes are pretty, intellectual. Some of the references you have to be kind of smart to get. So it's very high end, and then they'll follow up a very intellectual joke with somebody, farting. The most basic, kind of humor that you can have, where somebody falls down the steps. I mean, that's and one scene right after the other, because they don't want to be classified. They don't want to be categorized. So that's what postmodernism is all about. If I had more time in class, we'd go into it in a lot more detail. One of the things that we usually do that we didn't have time to do is usually after we talk about this, I ask the students to share a scene or a clip from a movie or a TV show that they said had postmodernism. And that was part of the WA, and I noticed you did that. Again, we won't have time to do that. But think about this as a potential topic. I'll talk a little bit more about this when we go over all the different topics you could write about for paper 3. But I wanted to take a little bit of time today to discuss postmodernism and refer to some of your examples that you gave me. And again, encourage you to think about this as a paper topic idea. I guess that's all I have for now. Again, I'm trying to keep these short because they're forever to upload. That's all for now. Like I said, look out in Blackboard at the end of the week for what the reading and the writing assignment will be between now and the week after break. Like I said, we're going to take a look at night and other examples of historical disenfranchisement. We'll do that for about a week or so, and then the paper 3 will be due. And then the last 3 weeks or so of class are going to be devoted to getting you ready for the final big paper dealing with real-life disenfranchisement happening today. And there is a presentation involved with that as well. And I'm going to try to figure out a way to allow you guys to be able to present. I'm still working that out. Next week, I'm going to take a look at some programs like Zoom that might be a little bit more interactive, but more on that later. I'm just kind of feeling my way. So that's it for now. It's great talking to you, even though I couldn't see you. I can picture you. Believe it or not, I've done other videos for my classes, and I kind of look forward to doing this because at least it's some kind of connection to you. I hope you're all doing well and are healthy. As I said before, I miss you. I miss the class. You guys, I thought we had a really good thing going, and unfortunately it was taken away from us. But we'll make the best of it. Like I said, if you ever have any questions or problems or issues, let me know. Contact me. I'm here. And I guess that's all I have for now. If I don't talk to you before, have a great spring break. It's not like you're going to go anywhere, but anyway, just take care. And I told another class, years from now, you'll have stories to tell about this period in your life, how you survived the coronavirus of 2020. So it will be done. It will get over at some time. So just kind of every day, one day at a time. All right, I'll talk to you later. Take care. Bye-bye.